And if they expect me to walk away from Luton with nothing, I'll make very sure there's nothing to walk away from.
Hello and welcome to Oak Road Hatter. I'm Finley and this week I'm joined by Jamie Castle. How are you doing, Jamie?
Yeah, not too bad. Obviously we all know the events of yesterday. Strange feeling. It's a feeling that not experienced for a while. But yeah, I'm sure we'll dig into overall thoughts, but I'm fairly okay with it all. So surprisingly not as bad as I thought it might be, given the fact that the big red R is probably going to be on that table this time next week. But no, it is what it is.
And I'm also joined by Kieran Robertson. Is that the same for yourself, Kieran?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I summed it up in my post I put out on Oak Road today, just quite a piece of it, really. I mean, obviously we've got the benefit of hindsight now. Yesterday, in terms of what was seen on the pitch, was very reactionary in terms of my thoughts. So I tried to not sort of try not to dwell on it too much and sort of let that be almost how I actually felt. Sort of woke up this morning, finished work, had a bit of a think about it during the day, whatever. And I was just like, yeah, do you know what? Like, I don't want to say it, but it's not the end of the world, is it? Like, let's be fair. Like, being in the Premier League's been fun. Loads of new grounds, loads of more miles travelled, and we're a lot richer for it as well. So hey, there's a few pros in those cons there somewhere.
I mean, not personally, I don't feel richer from it, but I'm sure the
As individuals, no, I'm very much broke thanks to Luton Town this season. But Luton Town being broke is something that we don't have to worry about. That's for sure.
And yes, as Jamie and Kieran both mentioned, we'll be reflecting on what was inevitably a 3-1 defeat at West Ham after it looked so positive when we went a goal up and held on until half-time. It wasn't to be, and the second half, West Ham just found another gear and were able to put 3 goals past us. So, Jamie, what did you make of, well, obviously that moment when we went 1-0 up initially?
I thought we started really, really well. Something that we've seen a lot this season. And obviously football doesn't work like that. But if you look at those little, I guess, sections of the season and in games, how we've played, we've given every team a game for certainly portions of every game that we've been in, maybe bar like your City away. So yeah, really positive. Eli being back just shows you exactly what he's capable of, and obviously not for right now, but would love to still see him in the Luton shirt next season. And then Sambi and Barkley in midfield, really good. Back three looking fairly secure, bar a few probably overplaying and mistakes. But yeah, all in all, looked very strong and was well worthy of the goal. Sambi finally gets his Luton goal, so well deserved on his part, not just from yesterday, but from his entire season's work. So yeah, it was really positive, and it almost looked at it was sort of a fairly comfortable start to the half, and then they start to get back into it. They start to cause a bit of threat on the counter, as you expect. They've got some very, very good players. I mean that sort of attacking midfield three behind Antonio is certainly up there in terms of. I mean, you can see why they've gone far in Europe. They've given Invincibles so far. Leverkusen a right good go in Europe, because that three of Kudus, Paqueta and Bowen is frightening. I mean, I've seen Bowen first hand for England. The game he played in the last break, I thought he was the best player on the pitch. So for him to be on the same pitch as Luton is, it just shows the quality that they have, and probably just sums up actually the difference between us and the Premier League this season. How every team has their sort of their lapses and their down moments. I mean, the back four yesterday for West Ham certainly could have been got at, but just that three, they're just a class above, and they're sort of on that just outside of world class bracket, and that's just that bar potentially Ross Barkley. We don't have any of those level of players, so yeah, is what it is. But yeah, overall, a great start to the half and to the game, and probably something again like loads of season we can take into next season and really look at as positives and have hope going into hopefully what will be a promotion sort of targeted season.
And Kieran, what did you think we would be able to hold on after we went 1-0 up, or what changed in that second half?
I think a lot of the things we discussed at the time, again, like not to sort of reflect too much on reactionary stuff, was just we just didn't do the same. Like, I think Barkley comes off that presence of just having someone like Barkley on the pitch who he can change the game at any given time, and then you eliminate that threat, and that's going to give a team like West Ham a hell of a lot more confidence. You saw it in the second half. It just felt like the first goal went in and it all just fell apart from there. I think the key difference is, sort of to allude to Jamie's comment about the players he's mentioned then, your Paquetas, your Bowens, your Kudus. You could even go as far back as a Ward-Prowse and a Soucek, right? They're all players where I look back on moments yesterday where someone like Alfie Doughty picks the ball up. There's a few seconds before he goes, oh, right, I'll do this. Or Eli, he had a really good chance second half where he took in the box, should have had a shot. He then tried to take on an extra man instead and then lost the ball. On your Dimmer, same thing, just snapshot instead rather than, right, how many more men can I take on? But then when it comes to West Ham, they've got the quality to take those risks, and they can have a shot from 25 yards and it'll be on target. Or they've got the quality to dribble round three players, as Kudus did multiple times, dribble round three players and then have the shot because they've got the quality there. And I think that's just where the mismatch was in the end. When you give a team like West Ham confidence, who to play to their strengths is on the counter, and the one thing that we couldn't do in the second half was keep hold of the ball. If you keep hold of the ball, you eliminate that threat. Then you look at a couple of chances that we had that we just didn't take, and then the lapses in judgment for especially goal 2 and even more so goal number 3. At 1-1, you think the belief is there. At 2-1, you go, okay, fine. At 3, you just watch any belief evaporate, not just from fans but from players as well.
And is that belief sort of evaporating as the goals have gone in, something that you think that's been reflective of this almost I'd call it the final third of the season, almost, after we had that great period in obviously December going into January and then sort of went downhill a bit from there. Do you think that's something that's been reflective?
I think that's fair to say. Like, it's one of those where I heard a fan around me yesterday sort of say that there was no plan B, and I hadn't really thought about it too much. Like, trouble is, there is a plan B, but the plan B doesn't get executed until it's too late. Like, the changes happen once the thing that you're trying to avoid has happened, such as going 2-1 down in the game. You go to 1-1 and you go, all right, you want to stick it back on West Ham. You want to take control of this football match because we've lost control. First half, we were in control, kept hold of the ball, played well, just did the simple stuff right. And then it got to sort of second half. They scored and it was like, oh no, panic stations, because at that point, again, like I said, you've given a team like West Ham confidence. They've got the ability to just punish you. But if you keep hold of the ball, they can't do anything with that quality, right? And that was just the one thing we didn't have. A Barkley who will just keep hold of the ball around 2-3 players and just keep us safe effectively. And then when we got our chances, didn't take them. And that's where the belief just starts to sit out. And we've seen that a lot over the course of even Bournemouth. You go 3-0 up and you're like, right, okay, you should see that out. But then even as a fan, the amount of people you speak to, one goal goes in and everyone goes, oh no, I've seen this before. But what they don't realise is that belief will install on the players as well. And it seems like it's fed through the entire team in the second half, especially with the injuries we've had. It's not helped. And you look at the bench and no offence, but there's no, bar Corley Woodrow, if I'm completely honest, based on the second half of the season, there's been no real game changers to come on whilst we've been injury hit.
Yeah, I think on Barkley, I think at the time I didn't see his injury as too impactful. I thought on the ball we were playing down the sides really well, especially down that left hand side with Doughty and Chong and Eli peeling off, and I didn't really feel like Barkley was impacting the game too much on the ball. I think he actually made quite a few mistakes on it on the ball. So ironically at the time I wasn't too concerned, and I thought Jordan Clark has not lost Barkley quality, but has quality on the ball to be able to do similar stuff. But I think what you both mentioned there in terms of that belief when we concede, and I think it's happened too many times this season where we concede and then we can't go 20 minutes without then letting in a second goal or a third goal, and it's just the high, I guess, volume of scoring back or of conceding back to back or back to back. I think that's probably where Barkley actually, on the grand scheme of things, unbelievable on the ball, but actually off the ball in terms of being able to maybe in that turnover position on the edge of our box, just really be able to just breathe, look up, and then find a better ball. Or I mean, at first half he didn't do that too well, but maybe second half he would have added that quality a bit more than Jordan Clark did. So yeah, I think that's where losing Barkley impacted us the most yesterday, rather than on the ball, because I thought really on the ball we were playing down the sides really well, and I thought Chong again not for now, but excited to see him in the second tier next year. I think he can impact it really well. So yeah, it's frustrating because again you sort of that realisation that probably in the end just didn't have quite enough, and there's possibly a few factors for that, but yeah, it's Luton Town in the Premier League. It was always going to be a tough ask, and it did prove too tough.
And you both obviously mentioned briefly there, we speaking about the quality and that cutting edge, that's something West Ham have got in abundance. And for me, the best player on the pitch, particularly in that second half, was Kudus, and he's obviously been lauded all season, but at times he was absolutely unplayable. What did you make of his performance individually, Jamie?
Yeah, obviously, ironically, until the third goal didn't have too much of an impact from an actual contribution to goals perspective, but just in that transition, there's not many like him in this league. And weirdly, on the train back from London yesterday, we were on the train with a West Ham fan, and he was weirdly saying that he wasn't too big of a fan of Kudus compared to like a Paqueta or Bowen, but just in that transition, he's frightening. He's a bit like a Chio in terms of profile, right? But just has that little ounce of just quality, and he can beat anyone. And you saw it with the third goal, how he could just sort of dink left, dink right, and then just be able to find the byline, keep the ball in, and then ultimately something that we haven't done enough this season is then find a man with that ball. The amount of times we've hit a byline or be able to get near the box, but just sort of the cross has been either overhit or underhit and can't beat the first man, or you do it behind or too far in front of a player. But ultimately the ball from Kudus was straight to that Earthy's feet, and not for us, but a great moment for him to get his first goal for West Ham. So he just has that class, and probably for West Ham a player that they can keep for next season, and if they do, they'll certainly be on that door for Europe.
And Kieran, Jamie's briefly mentioned it there, but in terms of his stature, obviously Kudus is a bit similar to Chio, and we saw Chio come back yesterday, and I thought at points in that second half after he came on, he did show a bit of something going forward. He was looking to beat his man, and I think that was something we really missed. What did you make of his return and obviously his performance as well?
I think for me the key thing with Chio, if you compare to say Fred, I think Fred's job recently has been very much, he's more of a man marker. The amount of times you'll notice Fred come inside, when even yesterday, like Bowen's drifted inside, so it's like they almost send Fred on him. It's like, go on you go. Or Kudus let loose, so it's like, right, Fred, off you trot, go and chase him. Like Chio's not that style of wing back. And then we went to 4-4-2 yesterday. For me, Chio's more direct. He's that typical play him at home type of player, like where you want to be more direct and you want to be on the front foot, and that's what we've missed. Is Chio is someone who I've never doubted his confidence, and I'm not going to slate on Yedinma because I think he's done a fantastic job in terms of what he deep end, thrown straight in the deep end, competing with Hashioka, and he's been the more favoured choice. But one thing he does lack, I think, is that extra little bit of confidence that Chio does provide, and it showed yesterday. I think it got to about 75 minutes, and you could see there wasn't much happening, but the only way something was going to happen, if it was going to, you were thinking it was going to be from Chio or Bene in terms of an assist, in terms of a contribution. That was like the left side was all but done by about 70 minutes. Even before that, I'd actually argue it was written off. But Chio coming on, as gutted that he sort of didn't get more time. I feel like Jamie made a great point after the game yesterday. And in hindsight, I still agree with it in terms of at half-time, you change Fred and you put Ogbene on. If Ogbene, in that situation, if Ogbene is fit to be on the bench, you play him for 45 minutes. That's the way it is. Like, he got 20 minutes yesterday, he looked fit as a fiddle. So why is he not playing the whole half and giving us that extra little... Yeah, fine, we were 1-0 up, so game state, it's a little bit different. But then even at 1-1, that's what, 56 minutes in, it was 1-1. You're looking at it and going, right, get Chio on, and again, like I said before, get control back in this game and actually give West Ham something to think about.
No, I agree completely. When he did come on eventually, but it was so frustrating of how late it came on, and it just felt like, yeah, if he was coming on that time, and there was still plenty of time to go, but bring him on slightly earlier, there's a real difference could have been made, and it also would have broken up the momentum West Ham had as well, where they were, once they got that first goal, you could see they were completely in control. We'll briefly talk about, obviously he's been out for a little while, and we'll talk about the injuries as well, with the likes of Chio and Adebayo, and I think they're the big two we've missed recently. Do you think we would have been in with more of a chance if we'd had them for even 2 or 3 games more, Jamie?
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I think you look back at points we've lost. So you look at, I don't know, if you could have started at Wolves, or if they could have been in that Villa game, for example. There's just games like that where you just think, if only we had an Eli or a Chio, especially that Villa game, how we just sort of, you really have a good chance to go on and win the game, and having Eli on the pitch would certainly help that. So there's no doubt that had we not been in this injury crisis, that we would have had a few more points on the board. Whether that would have been enough still, who knows? Like, again, it's one of those questions that you'll never know the answer to. But you just look at that period between, what was it, end of December, from like sort of Boxing Day or maybe a bit before, with Sheffield United away, and then going through to the, obviously Brighton 4-0 being sort of the last win in that spell, but then even Newcastle 4-4 after that. Like that sort of, what was it, 8 to 10 game stint was the best we played this season, and it's no coincidence that they were the games where we had Sambi at full fitness and form, Eli at full fitness and form, Chio as well. So you just think, what if Eli hadn't got injured in the warm up at Man United? Even in that game, right? Even if Eli hadn't got injured in the warm up for the Man United home game, you probably don't lose that. You probably get a point. Okay, it's only a point, but it's just margins like that over the course of the game, because we absolutely battered Man United for 80 minutes or 70 minutes. Okay, 2 awful mistakes and goals to give them to go 2 down. Okay, 1 mistake and then one misfortune with the sort of the Hoyland goal. But if he does on the pitch, or if you have like a fully fit 11, you go on to get something from that game. Because you have the quality to go on and get that second or maybe third goal. So yeah, it's a bit what could have been. But just going back onto the point with regards to the substitutions, I agree. I think love Edwards to my core. I think he's excellent for the club. But he hopefully will reflect on this season and will look at maybe a few mistakes that he's made personally. I think substitutions that on occasions probably could have been a bit better or a bit earlier, and I don't doubt his comments in the pre-match press conference in terms of that they've been brave. I don't doubt that at all, especially with sort of away at Palace, bringing on sort of youngsters and Crawley and Andros away at Palace just to get a point. That's certainly brave substitutions, but maybe just a few more gambles earlier. I think with Chio at half time, and even if obviously we don't know the medical report of Chio before the game, but even if you think he can play half an hour, you think just put him on at half time, you 1-0 up, because you think if we can go on and get that second goal, then that kills the game. Even if you need to then bring off Chio on the 75th, 80 minutes, okay, you don't like to sub off players that you've subbed on, but needs must. I think it's just game state, and then you can sub off Chio on 80 minutes and put on Hashioka, for example. So yeah, there's things that you can probably reflect on this season. I think he's been excellent for us, and I believe he will continue to be excellent for us in terms of Edwards. But yeah, he probably will take the off season maybe to reflect on where he may have probably tweaked a few things.
We're going to take a break now, but after the break we'll be reflecting a little bit more. Welcome back to the Oak Road Hatter podcast. I'm still joined by Jamie Castle and Kieran Robertson. And now we're going to reflect on, after what was the last away game in the Premier League this season, we'll reflect a little bit on some of the away days we've had. So we'll start with that West Ham away day. Obviously there's a lot gets said about the London Stadium and how different it is from the Bowling Ground and all that sort of thing. For me, I thought I was expecting a worse view than what I got, but it didn't feel like a football stadium in terms of the spacing from between the two tiers and the space from the pitch. And for me, it was just a strange experience of watching football there. And I just wanted to see how you felt about it. Obviously, Jamie, you had a fun interaction with some West Ham fans up in the top of the top tier. We'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, if we start from the beginning, I mean, I'm always a bit of a sucker for a London away day. So that always gives a few bonus points. I love it. If you look at sort of like your QPRs and your Millwalls and your Charltons, etc., I always love like a London away day. So you get bonus points for that. And I don't mind Stratford as an area. I think there's obviously plenty of bars and that. And I think if you look at some of the stadiums or grounds this season, I think Bournemouth in particular, you've got pubs are quite a way away from the actual place, right? So you've got that nice area outside Westfield that you can go to if that's where you want to go, and then there's actually quite a few nice places outside the ground as well in terms of like pop-ups. So that whole experience was really good. But yeah, I get what you mean in terms of the stadium. It's quite clearly a sort of a multi-purpose stadium that happens to have a Premier League football team there. How the lower tier and the upper tier is a bit weird because they've obviously tried to, from a TV perspective, make it look like the fans are on top of the pitch by bringing that sort of almost temporary stand at the bottom forward. But all they've done is basically pull the running track width but higher up, which then gives you that distance to the upper tier, which is a bit weird. But I'm not sure where you were sat, Finn. I saw you before, I didn't sit with you in the game, but I was like 8 to 10 rows from the back, and from a tactical perspective, I don't mind it. I quite like seeing a bit top down in terms of players and where they are, what they're doing. But quite clearly, it's better to be quite close to the action. Like must sit at the Kenny Lower B, 8 rows from the front, and I love sort of being that close to the action as well. So all in all, I don't mind the stadium, but then it's sort of the atmosphere or the impact it has on the atmosphere, and it just kills it. I think I saw a tweet from a West Ham fan and goes on to that guy in the Barcelona shirt, how it's probably slightly too big for them, where West Ham, great club, like you can't doubt that they're a big club, but they'd probably sell out 45,000 easily week in, week out with just West Ham fans. But when you get to sort of like your high 50s, low 60s, that adds that almost too much of a buffer for corporate and tourists, and that leads on to the guy in the Barcelona shirt giving it large to Luton fans, and you just think, yeah. So that dampens the atmosphere somewhat, and I don't mind wearing a Barcelona shirt if you're a tourist to a West Ham game, that's fine, and equally I don't mind being a West Ham fan giving it large to Luton fans, but to being a Barcelona shirt, giving it large to Luton fans in combination is just a bit weird. So yeah, all in all, a weird experience. Not the worst away day, but yeah, definitely far from the best.
And you mentioned there, obviously, you had some West Ham fans giving it to you as travelling fans a bit. I think that is something that we've actually really missed in the Premier League. There's not been many games where you've actually had the home fans giving it a bit back and forward between. So I think having that at West Ham was probably helped the atmosphere a little bit. But
Yeah.
so I was sat 3 rows from the front of the top tier, so I could see down into this just big pit of nothing where the two stands are sort of separated. So yeah, did you find that there was a better atmosphere there than there have been other places, Kieran?
I'm going to rattle a few cages here.
Here we go.
No. Simple answer is no. And West Ham fans, don't make this about yourself and don't get offended. But the common theme across the league is your atmospheres are all shocking. Genuinely, I've been asked this quite a lot actually. The only club that I firmly believe can hold themselves high in terms of, remember, just away days that I've been to, I've probably missed about 6. So sorry, Liverpool, you're not in the conversation. Man City, we won't talk about your quiet place anyway. Newcastle are the only club that can hold themselves high for atmosphere at home. Keywords. Everyone else, whether it's your Brightons, even Villa, Chelsea, especially Chelsea, West Ham, your atmospheres are shocking. Same old stuff. It's same old stuff. You hear nothing for 65 minutes, and then they go 3-1 up out of safety. Oh, West Ham, oh, blowing bubbles, yeah. Oh, George Earthy, cool. You didn't know who he was 10 minutes ago, but fine. Just like it's nothing new, and I think that's the one thing I'm looking forward to being back in the Championship is I love a bit of back and forth with other clubs, but like it's in good spirit. It's fans that even your QPRs, like I don't really like them very much, but I respect the fact that they give a shit about their football team, and I like that. And obviously you'll see that then at Leeds, Birmingham. I know they've gone down, but again, a good example. Plymouth, like you come across like good fans who actually care, who understand. Like as silly as it sounds, people that actually understand football for what it is. It's not a TV show. It's not watch from your armchair. It's not this thing that you turn up to once every 9 months. It's your beers. It's seeing your mates. It's not the 90 minutes that you see. It's everything else in between. And Premier League football, to me, summed up this season, shows that they are so out of touch with what football is and what football should be. So again, come back to your question. Didn't rate the atmosphere at all. West Ham, your atmosphere is shocking. Not going to hear otherwise. That's that.
And I think you'd probably have a fair few fans of clubs, particularly the clubs that have experienced the Championship fairly recently. Agreeing with that, I would say there's as much as we don't get on with each other, Nottingham Forest would probably say the same. Sheffield United, Burnley, all probably have that same idea that you're coming to games, and because I guess we're small fish in what is a very big pond, a lot of these fans of these big clubs don't see us as, oh, we don't really need to get behind the team because they'll just do it anyway. Whereas that's not, obviously for Luton and for a lot of clubs down in those divisions, it's you're there to support your team, and it doesn't matter who you're playing against, you need to get behind them every single time. And I think, yeah, for me all season it's been, there wasn't really much going on. There wasn't really an atmosphere. I sort of missed the Championship atmospheres where it's a bit hostile and you actually have a bit of back and forth between the fans.
To be fair, like the only one that, again, actually, to add to my list of standouts, the only one I'll give credit to again is Palace. Because as an away day experience, Crystal Palace was well up there. Not just because of 90+5 as well, but again, just another example of fans that, like, they're a proper football team, Crystal Palace. Like, they just care, they give a shit. They've got, obviously, they're like ultras, in air quotes, whatever goes on down that end, fair enough. At least you try. Nice drum, fair enough. They create a good atmosphere. But pubs around the area, decent. And it's the only time this season that I've turned around to Jamie and sort of been like, do you know what? It's felt like a proper away day. And I think that's what I've missed this season is I've gone to games kind of being like, probably going to lose. Cool. And then you're not asked. You turn up at the pub, you have a couple of pints, you get bored, you get turned over. Oh, cool. Just what I expected. Drives home, la 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 la. Like, okay, boring. Like,
I think. No, sorry. I think what lets Palace down a little bit. Sorry to interrupt, Kieran. I think is where they put the away end. I think if the away end was up by the ultras and there was an interaction with the ultras and the away end, I think the atmosphere would go up a little bit. But you've got us in that corner where we're on that long side stand, and there are going to be obviously home fans to our left, but you've got probably most of the season ticket holders are going to be in the ultras end or maybe the other side in the main stand where the dugouts are. Probably most of the game by game ticket sales are going to be in that stand where we are. So you're going to have the people that go 5-6 times a season rather than the ones that go 20 plus times a season, right? So that's probably just a little feedback to Mr. Parrish. If you can move the away end up the other side, you could probably get a bit of a better atmosphere. Not that it's a bad atmosphere, but just if you want to try and squeeze out that extra 10%.
Maybe pass it on to Wolves as well, instead of having their away and stretch across the half of the pitch. That is some shocking design choices there.
I mean, we've got one more game to go, and we'll properly reflect on away games once the season's really done. But I think from what we've all said, there's something missing in the Premier League as a fan that goes to matches, and I felt that all season. But as I've mentioned just then, was one more game to go, and it's not impossible that we would still stay up, but it would take a very significant goal swing. And I mean, I'm sure there's more impossible things have happened, but for me, I think probably for you guys as well, we almost accepted the relegation at this stage.
Yeah. You could judge by the tone of and I guess the structure of our responses, right, where we're sort of talking ahead to next year in the second tier. But I mean, I would say Fulham owe us at least 5 goals from that from that annoying 7-0 away loss. What was it, 2-3 years ago now? So if they can give us 5, 6, 7 goals, and if Burnley can somehow become the prime Barcelona that everyone thought they would be at the start of the season, given that they were well odds on favourites to be the best side that came up, that would be great. But no, it's looking very unlikely, and it's probably getting into that territory of, if we stay up, I will ... Not that I want to commit anything to recording at this stage, but that's very much the territory that we're in at the minute.
Kieran, did you want to?
I was going to say it's more of a me thing to. I was going to say it's more of a me thing to commit to, innit? Fun fact for those of you that have been listening all season is I said to Mark, I believed Eli would get more goals than Morris, didn't I? And I said Morris will get 9 or less. And he got 10 the other day. And I think it was Wolves, wasn't it? Wolves, he got number 10. And I celebrated it, and I sat back and went, hang on, that's number 10, isn't it? And I said, for every goal above 9, I'd have to go on roller coasters. And now, fun fact about me, I hate roller coasters. I think they're just shit. They're not fun. Like, they just make my stomach turn. I'm not scared of anything, but I guess maybe that's the one thing. Whatever. So I owe Mark 1 roller coaster ride. But I'll tell you what, if for some god rhyme or reason that we stay up with minus 12 goal difference to make up, Mark, mate.
Surely that's 12 roller coasters, no?
No, I was about to say I'll happily pay for a fast track pass at Fort Park and do it myself. So I believe in. I think I'll become a born again Christian at that point, because I believe in anything.
We'll end on that. We'll end on that. So here's hoping that Carlton Morris scores at least a hat-trick on the final day of the season, so Kieran gets a nice day out at Thorpe Park. Thanks for listening, and be sure to like, follow and subscribe on all our social media platforms. From me, from Jamie and from Kieran, thank you for listening.